All right, welcome to the weeks 10 through 12 recap for 2025 Season 3, which I'll be recapping those 3 weeks along with the season on the whole. Looking ahead to week 13, kind of discussing some of the new things that have come out going into Season 4. I'm not going to make this like a full on Season 4 outlook video for me because I'm still waiting on a couple things like the preliminary schedules and stuff to get an idea of what I'm going to be personally driving or doing next season. I've got a couple options I've got to weigh on the table, which I'll kind of touch on briefly, maybe towards the end of this, and then in another video. But then we'll also have things like the track tier list video I discussed in the last one, where I'm going to go through every track I've won at and kind of rank them relative to configs of similar track styles, so dirt road versus dirt road, etc. Um, Looking forward to that. I'll hopefully have a number of videos this week, including comparing all the Road to Indy cars, as we finally, after years of waiting, have received the IL-15 in the service. The Indy NXT car is the series. Well, I guess okay, the Indy NXT series car that's the car that competes in the Indy NXT series, which is just below. Well, it's Indy Next, depending on who says it, but you know, WWE feeder series, whatever joke here. But yeah, we'll start by I pulled up the last race I showed in the last one before I went on my huge tangent of whatever else I was going to focus on the rest of the season and what have you. But here's the Indy Pro Strength of Field race from Knock Hill, one of the last few Indy Pro Strength of Field races, at least in officials, which I'll also touch on before this video ends because I think it's very important what that community is trying to do to keep that series alive and well going forward, because it had been for a while at least kind of a league environment, and they're going to carry that on through open hosted sessions at a similar time slot, which I'll find the exact forum thread and timing for, and put that towards the end as well, just kind of showing that these guys are really dedicated to this car and want to see it succeed, even if iRacing's going to kind of drop it from the official series catalog, if you will. So let's start by covering races from weeks 10 through 12, and we'll keep cooking from there. So the first race that I did following that was PCC at Auto Club competition. This combo was a lot of fun. This first one I didn't quite pick up the win in, but I put up a decent fight with Henry Morris. I at least led a lap at some point, so that's something. But ultimately, Henry made it by me. I was able to hold on to the lead for all 14 other laps that weren't led by me. So I finished second in this one, but this one was a good bit of fun. I like this track. It's a good track for these cars, I think. I think if PCC needed to do like a Roval every season, this is a good one to keep in the rotation, I think. It fit well. It was interesting with the corners in 1 and 2, at least in the M2, kind of sliding your way on exit. I didn't do anything crazy in terms of setups. I think I just ran the fixed setup for the track, or the iRacing provided one rather, for this week. But this was good fun. So that was the first race I did of week 10. I followed that up with another one, PCC. So this was finally my first win in the M2. I had my teammate Ty Keela in the server for this one. Carl Sampson, shout out to him. He got his first win at Auto Club, I presume, in the Clio. So that was cool to see. I led 15 of 15, able to stay in the lead. There was a couple cars at some point that were kind of gunning for me. I don't necessarily, it's been a couple weeks, so I don't necessarily remember names here. I want to say, am I going to find them? Is there not enough? Actually, I should just look at the list of M2s. What am I doing? BMW M2. Yeah, I want to say Zach Fuller was putting up a good fight at some point, but had to pit due to not appropriately serving his slowdown penalty at some point, I believe. This track was really easy for picking up slowdowns through like the back couple corners coming back towards the front stretch of the oval. Just really tricky, but ultimately picked up my first win in the M2 and my first win at Auto Club, so that was one track, one car ticked off the list there. I ran another one in the Clio by myself because my teammates wanted to run it in the Toyota again. Actually, no, this is the one I just showed. Where am I? IndyCar at Milwaukee. Max Garcia, newly crowned USF Pro 2000 champion. Missed qualifying, started at the back, caused a yellow midway through. Proceeded to restart from like third or fourth, I think, and just drove through everybody. Well, I'm not saying drove through literally in that case. I mean, he did cause the wreck that brought out the yellow, but he was just much faster than seemingly everybody else on the track and walked the field and gained 147 I rating because he has a D license oval for some reason. I don't know. If there's one thing I've learned this season is there's a good number of these road to Indy drivers in the real world that don't really take the sim super seriously. Because his response when the guy that got wrecked by him was like, "Dude, you wrecked me." His response was just LOL, text chat LOL, dipped out, left. So it's disappointing to see that that's how a number of real world drivers treat the sim. I think that there's just a lot of kind of just general disappointment, dissatisfaction with drivers that kind of treat it that way. But you know, obviously they seem to know what they're doing better than we do because they're doing it for real. So clearly they're doing something better than we are, whether that be monetarily or otherwise. And I'm not saying that to Garcia in specific, to be clear. Um, but that was my first race in Milwaukee that week. I followed it up with another one. I had some teammates and friends on tap for this one. So Kyle and Treston here, Turner Johnson as well was in this one. Some other community guys like Moskowitz. This is a good one for me. I qualified on the pole, walked the field. Kyle had to work his way from sixth. Was gaining on me in the closing stages, but ran out of laps, and that's all it took for me to seal my first win at Milwaukee. This one was a big deal for me. I didn't quite have the full-on reaction I thought I was immediately, but like it definitely settled in, and I very much appreciated the fact that I was finally able to say I've won here. So that was another track pickup for week 10. I want to say that was the only other track pickup that week. Yeah. So this is the last of the new tracks or new cars picked up this week. Ultimately wound up being a pretty light week on races from there. I ran Legends Road Cup at Lime Rock Park Classic. Had a great battle with Jake King here. Ultimately got drafted by down the front stretch on the last lap. Barely lost out. It happens. Still, I enjoy this car and this track a good bit. It's a great combo. It's a free combo that everybody has. If I had to just like, and again, it's another one of those where if I had to surefire a track every season, I think one layout of Lime Rock Park would probably make the schedule every season because it's just that good. Even if it is kind of a bit of a draft fest with the way that this car handles now, which isn't entirely unrealistic, as I've kind of alluded to before. I did some practice to try to maybe run Formula Ford at Sonoma. Opted not to do that. Here's the PCC race in the Clio I ended up winning because I was the lone car in the PCC field. Finished sixth, one lap down. Zachary Thrasher ended up winning the M2 class. Had a couple buddies of mine, I think, running in. Yeah, because there's Kyle in his GR86. And was Ty in this one as well? Yeah, there he is. He was also running the Toyota, but probably had some sort of issues at some point. But yeah, this is another win at Auto Club. Not that I needed it. Not that I needed one in the Clio either, but I was here for fun, and I had some fun with my teammates. So that was fun. Practiced at another of other tracks like Red Skogan in the Clio to try to win there. Hickory in the SRX. Just kind of trying a bunch of stuff out, running practice sessions for a bunch of stuff. I ran a dirt midget race at Cedar Lake. No dice. I likewise struggled here. I was fortunate to stay kind of relatively close without cautions or anything. I just don't have the outright pace in this car to... tired from a long weekend of sim racing at the Sim Gaming Expo, which I suppose I'll probably touch on as well at some point. But that was a lot of fun, getting to meet a lot of guys that I've either looked up to or raced for a good time. Just saying hello to everybody, seeing everybody just in person, enjoying the event and whatnot. So, but yeah, nothing to write home about here. It's a midget race at Cedar Lake. Still trying to get a win in either of those. 358 modified at Charlotte. Likewise here, another struggle bus event. Fortunately, I put up a solid result. I was able to beat let's just kind of stay out of trouble here because there's some guys that encountered some problems kind of later on in this race. It's dirt oval. I genuinely, when I finish the dirt oval license, I have no interest in running dirt oval. Like, unless they release new content, I'm not gonna have any vested interest in dirt oval. When a dirt oval race goes good, it's like pulling a needle out of a haystack, and other than that, you're just in for a bad time. 358s, or sorry, 360 sprint cars at Eldora. I think I got junked by a guy just not thinking my car existed and spun me into the inside wall and killed me. So that's 115 IR down the drain. I've been hook, line, and sinkering some good DNFs in the dirt ovals. Limited lates. That didn't go official. This 358 race at Charlotte did. This was probably the closest I got to winning in either of these so far. Tim Parrott ultimately made it by me eventually. I was holding him up really good for the opening couple laps, the first like 8 or so, and then he made it by me and just walked away from me. This was, yeah, just all over the place. I'm not super keen on that. Homestead Road A, I got junked coming into the infield turns that are inside of 3 and 4 here. I don't remember which car it was. It doesn't really matter. I just got screwed over by being on the outside. Guy curb hopped it. There's like a curb coming into the infield, just curb hopped it, smacked into me. Took me out of contention to that one, so it was disappointing, but I went back out, ran my laps just to try to get as much as I could out of it, and, you know, stayed on the lead lap, if nothing else, but unfortunate to say the least. As much as I enjoy Homestead Road A, or well, I enjoy Homestead Road, but I think Road B is just better from a racing standpoint because you're not getting quite as many opportunities to dive the corners as much. 358 at Port Royal. I got nothing here. I might as well not even mention these races. They happened. I sucked. The only noteworthy ones of these are going to be the ones that I either get crashed out of or win, which wasn't that. I think I got crashed out of this one. I don't remember by who. Again, doesn't matter. I feel like the 305 is my best car if I have to pick a dirt oval car that's not the micro sprint, because I feel like I can put up decent pace. It's just you got to be in the right place at the right time near the front of the field to win these races and be able to put up consistent laps out of the slick over and over and over again, and then you can win a good number of these, as we'll kind of see later in this video when we get to week 12. Week 11 was pretty much a ghost town in terms of wins. Sean M. Conklin whooped my butt at Lebanon. This was my one Lebanon race this week. I had a great battle with Daniel Luna before he spun out behind me at some point. He obviously set a faster single lap than I did, so he clearly had more pace than I did. I didn't really practice this one all that much. I kind of just came out and ran it and picked up a P2 there. Nothing right home about there. Dirt Street Stocks, I-55, that didn't go official. USF 2000, Homestead Road A, that didn't go official. This one did. I had a solid battle trying to chase down Jarrett Corey in this one before he spun. It was a 2-car battle between me and him. He ended up spinning. He went off at turn 1 and I believe spun trying to basically he re-entered the track and spun because of the grass on the tires and just couldn't hold on to it. So that race happened. It was a good time. We rolled into the this would have been Proto GT in the Ford GT2. This is my first win at Daytona and my first win in the Ford. This is actually my first race ever in the Ford. So that's another one this season. I went 1 for 1 in the car and, in the car, because I won in the Kia at Nordschleife earlier this season. That was another one I did. But me and Kernan had a great race here. We unfortunately made contact. He kind of tapped my left rear as I got loose in turn 1 and ultimately spun behind me and ended up costing him staying on the class lap with me. So that race happened. I enjoyed the GT2. I've watched Justin drive it a good bit on his channel, Krasinski. It's a good car. I enjoyed it. I definitely would have to dig into driving it. I'd have to put a deliberate amount of practice and maybe some setup work into it to get it to where I'd be comfortable racing it again. But I figured it was a decent opportunity since I didn't really have a ton going on during week 11 to pick that one up. So I did. We move into the last race of week 11, which would have been the Indy Pro Strength of Field race, the penultimate Indy Pro Strength of Field race. We got 2 splits here, which was huge. So great to see that there was enough interest that week to get some guys to turn out for this one. Finished third. I had an opportunity to maybe pass my collar at some point. I couldn't run him over. That was basically what it boiled down to. I couldn't run him over at any point. He just had the perfect car to park it on all the apexes where I was faster than him and stay in front of me, and I wasn't willing to wreck him for it. So it was fun. Road A's a struggle. There's just so many corners in these cars. A lot of guys were probably running A1, like no downforce wings, trying to maximize the straight line speed because that's just kind of the back and forth you got going on here. So, you had Corey and I think Alex Miller at some point spun it off the final corner, coming back onto the ovals. Just, it's so tough here. This track's tough as nails, especially in these cars when we're trying to run as little downforce as you can get away with. I probably ran way more than a lot of people did, and that was part of the reason why I wasn't able to make it by Mike. But it was fun, and I think that was a big thing for that. So then we move into week 12, which my goal week 12 was win at the Chicago Street Course, which we'll get to. Me and Jarrett had a battle at Iowa Road. I led the opening couple laps because he's, I think I drafted by him coming back into the infield, stayed ahead of him for a couple laps, and then he finally started clicking off some solid laps and just walked me after a point. He was just getting better entries in a lot of the corners, and I think I burned my tires off really early on, especially with that oval portion. It's really easy just to overload the right side tires and give yourself little grip, and I wasn't backing up the corner going into the infield and the corner coming off of the infield enough to keep pace with him or stay in the draft. And Jarrett said he had practiced like basically all day on this combo to try to win this one because he was looking for his first win in the Legend, and I don't know if this was his first win at Iowa, but that might have been the case there too. So shout out to him for that one. That was fun. Definitely not a combo I think we'll see again. I mean, the road course at Iowa hasn't been used hardly ever, but I don't think we'll see that one again. 305 at Volusia. I don't know what happened in this race. Yeah, this was the one where the 2 leaders, or the 2 guys that were running like 3rd and 4th in front of me just crashed into each other, and I had nowhere to go. So I had to come in and pit it. Again, I feel like if I qualify near the front, I can win these races fairly easily. It's just I don't, and I can't apparently. So there was that. 358 modified at Lucas Oil, that didn't go official. 305 at Volusia did though. This would have been 5 days ago. I just picked a random 305 Volusia race. Qualified 3rd, made it to up to 2nd before turn 1, got a really good launch. William missed turns 1 and 2, so I got to his inside down the backstretch, passed him going into turn 3 and never looked back. Just a slow creep away. It's really hard to build up a gap in these, but I did it, and I managed to win this race. Say what you will, a 1300 strength of field isn't anything crazy. It's basically just a bunch of rookies out there, but I don't know. Dirt oval's frustrating. I've had my fill of dirt oval. If the faster I could stop running dirt oval, the better. And you'll see one last race from a couple days ago. This would have been what day was the 3rd? Wednesday. So this would have been USF Chicago Street, qualified on the pole. I had a good bit of pace over Powell here. It would have been probably the only other guy who would have been able to hold on to me for this one. This had some really good fields over the course of the week. Shout out to Christian Flagg, who organized a field right at the last slot of like a 3K SOF, finished 2nd. Ultimately ended up taking the championship points lead from Akesh. They were tied going into that last slot, and Akesh was unfortunately not able to do anything this week to try to gain any more points. So he falls like 22 or 23 points behind Christian in the overall standings, and Christian's going to win the 2025 Season 3 championship. So it's an alternate season for me. I won it in 24, won it again in Season 2, finished 3rd in Season 1, and then Season 3 I'm going to finish 3rd again. So maybe next season I'll win it again somehow, but I'm not particularly hunting that. That I know for sure. I didn't really want to hunt it this season either. I was surprised to be as high up in the points as I was coming to the end of the season. So, but there's that. We'll look at point standings for the stuff I ran full time anyway. The rest of it's not super relevant. I could probably do a whole video in its own right of all the series I ran this season. But the main focal points would have been, I guess, where did I? Okay, so Legends Road Cup would have been the first one. Finished sixth in points. That's the best I've done in this series so far. I think a lot of that had to do with the track selection being a bit skimper in terms of tracks that the European drivers might have had. You'll see guys like Stay Ray and Gunnar Alm not having all 8 weeks, or like Hari, or any of these guys. So I think that helped a little bit. I think my best in points before this was like 8th. So it's a couple spots picked up, but I don't think that's all entirely down to pace or entirely down to luck, to be honest. I feel like I had a decent season here. I led a good number of laps, had a decent average start, average finish. Pretty much every race I was inside the top 5. Couple poles, couple wins. Not too much I could complain about there. Then we had USF 2000. Finished 3rd in points. Brian Molitor would have been just behind me. Hunley, Peerdorn, Corey, Jason Miller, Boyles, Kasimarik, Corey Shaw, Richard Matthews, Ethan M. Brown, Stover, Kieran Shanks, even like a lot of the guys that I would have seen week in and week out, or even guys that only ran a couple weeks. Up at the top, as you'd expect, I think Christian, I don't know what the all-time points record in recent seasons would be for this, but this is more than I remember ever scoring to win the championship for this series. So shout out to him. He put on some great races this season. I had a good battle with him at Knock Hill, trying to hunt him down, pick up a win there. Or well, I don't need a win there. I have a couple wins at Knock Hill, but just to try to pick up a win over him in that race. So led a good number of laps, average start, average finish, same deal. Lots of bulk of my. I think the only 2 of these that aren't in the top 5 are races that I got junked in some capacity, and then 6 poles, 9 wins. It's half my starts, so you could coin flip me in and I'd win the race. So can't complain about that. Probably not necessarily my best effort ever. Obviously, my best efforts were probably when I won the championship in 2024 season 4. That's probably still my biggest achievement there. And last but not least, the last season of Indy Pro, I finished 5th in points. I didn't ultimately end up running all the strength of fields. I maybe could have had a podium finish in points for sure had I had run all the strength of fields, I think, because that would have probably given me another 100 some odd points, give or take, depending on where I finish in those. We'll kind of look at the individual weak point breakdowns that I have for me anyway. For this series, but this was the last season for Indy Pro 2000 in the iRacing official ladder, with the arrival of the NXT car. That's going to replace this series effectively. So the only place you'll be able to race this car in officials anymore is Junior Open Wheel Oval Challenge. They will be hosting strength of field replacement races. So I'll transition over to my browser here. Let me think. Okay, there we go. So if I go over to the iRacing forums, head over to Formula Car, go to Indy Pro, and the Continuation League. So this is their schedule that they're doing. So the sessions will open at 8:55 p.m. Eastern. Quali will be around about 20 minutes after that, I believe, and then races will be 10 minutes after qualifying starts. Lap count should yield a race lasting just under 30 minutes with a 30-minute time cap. Some slight differences to the official series. Road qualifying will be open session, and oval will be 2-lap average. So yeah, do come out to these if you have any interest in racing the Indy Pro. Go forward, especially on road courses. Looks like they've got a pretty good mix of tracks here between, Road Atlanta, Long Beach, Motegi, IRP, Mid-Ohio, Milwaukee, Knock Hill, Belle Isle. Like, these are all pretty solid tracks. Fairgrounds, Sandown will be interesting. The Gateway Road course is definitely an underrated one. If you haven't tried it, please do. And then obviously the Gateway Oval, they're going to run 4 ovals as opposed to our typical 2 or 3 that we had in the official series. So please do come out to these if you so choose. And then we'll take a quick look at points for week to week stuff. So this is my best efforts week to week. for all 3 series I ran full time. I have my all-time bests over here. Uh, so I got demoted to Div 2 in sports cars, so that's why my Legends Road Cup is Div 2. 4 weeks of wins for that series, 6th in division, 6th overall, because pretty much everybody was Div 2. I actually should double check that, make sure that's actually correct. Yes. So, and then if we move over to the USF side of things, or I guess, yeah, we'll do USF first. 6 incidents all season. Actually, I can fix this. This is only 2 based off that count. This is definitely more than 5. This is 17. I don't know what I'm smoking here. And that's 4. I guess that's 4. I don't know. I did not pay attention to these apparently. But yeah, 5 weeks of wins, including my first pickups. Well, I guess new pickups would have been. I think I won in Laguna, but that didn't count because it wasn't a higher strength of field than this one. But then VIR Portland. Those were new. Chicago Street, same deal. New track, win there. I did end up watching the strength of field, the final strength of field. It was broadcast on National Racing Network. They came back to broadcast the final strength of field for the Indy Pro. Carter Kudinger won that one over, I think Alex Miller was leading the early stages of that race before an unfortunate crash for him. Yeah, it's a shame to see the Indy Pro go. I know it's a lot of people's favorite car on the service, including guys like Sam Carasala, who's driving for Fiercely Forward on the IndyCar side of things. It's kind of a community that's going to migrate to hosteds for the most part. They're not super keen on fixed setup stuff, which is what all the NXT stuff will be. I don't necessarily fully blame them for that. Obviously, they had their spot that they could do open set and drive the car they wanted to drive, and that's being yoinked away from them just when they're getting the car that they were probably the biggest proponents of for the longest time, and they're not getting it in the way that they'd like to race it. And you know what, power to them. They're going to go have their fun their way, and hats off to them. I'll hopefully be able to make it out to a couple hosted events with them. I'm running TNT Bolt with them for these next couple weeks. Our second group of races tomorrow. I don't remember the tracks, but I want to say it's Portland and Oswego, and then the last week I believe is Long Beach and Slinger, something like that. I know it's those 4 tracks. It might not be in that order. But yeah, that'll be fun. I might follow it up with a run in Shock if I have the time. There's a lot of things I need to balance going into next season. But yeah, there's just a lot I gotta think about in terms of my broadcasting duties, what I want to do in terms of driving, what series I want to pick up or put down or try something different. I've been kind of sitting on Road to Indy and Legends Road for a while in terms of my participation. I think I'm going to run Legends Road again for sure next season because that's kind of our cornerstone between me and my roommate from college. So that's what we're going to do there. Looking ahead to, I guess, week 13 here. I guess more importantly, we made it up to, I believe, 55% on I've Been Everywhere. Double check that real quick. I'm not going to show it because it's not super important. Yeah, 55%. So the new tracks were Auto Club, Milwaukee, Daytona, Volusia, and Chicago Street. That's 5 new pickups. And then on the Alien side of things, we're up to 30%. Last thing I wanted to check was the season challenge. I think I finished second. I think. Yeah. So yeah, Timothy Thurin picked up a couple more on me the last couple weeks. I just could not push myself to do much more than what I did. You know, the three second places, what even were those? Rookie Street Stocks, BMW M Power, and 358 mod. Like I maybe could have picked up wins in those. You know, I had third places in midget and UMP. Like there were maybe some opportunities I could have picked up some more, but I just didn't. I didn't have it in me to push to win it. But it was cool to be in contention for this and kind of chase that a little bit. I had a win percentage of around 34% this season. I think I calced it out somewhat recently. So it was like a 1 in 3 odds of me coming in and winning whatever race I signed up for. So that was a pretty big accomplishment, especially if go and look here. I ran 156 official races this season by my count, which should be accurate because I keep track session by session. I don't need this anymore. So then if we head into spreadsheet here, this is not actually, I don't need this one. I need the season 4 one to track wins from this season. So we picked up a total of it's only 27. Oh, no, wait. It didn't. It unselected my earlier selections. $53 wins this season and 156 starts. That puts it at 33.97%, so just a little under 34%. We picked up a win in that Ford GT2 car, as well as the BMW M2 in terms of new new car combos. So that moves that needle a bit further forward. So that does mean that ultimately I did move that percentage up about, I want to say 7% since the start of the season, because how many new cars did I win in this season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So yeah, 13 new cars. Yeah. So it's 13 new cars. That moves me up to 30% on that. So that side of things may become slightly bit more of a focus depending on how things kind of shake out and go forward. Obviously with the new content coming out, which I'll kind of discuss a little bit with week 13 stuff. That'll hopefully increase a little bit just kind of naturally. But most recent win, Chicago Street this week. So not a ton of new stuff there, but that does kind of narrow up track wins and stuff. So we're down to 64 tracks, which by my math means that if for the next 5 seasons I win 1 new track a week, I'll have cleared them by the end of 2026 season 4. Hopefully I can progress through it a little bit faster than that. Obviously it's just really going to depend on how fast I can crank through these. I think dirt oval stuff might get harder and easier at the same time the more comfortable I get in the dirt oval cars. Obviously the road courses are kind of the road courses. They're introducing 1 new track next season in the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, the track at Mexico City, which will have an oval. So that might help me on that front, depending on if it's, because it looks like it's a mile-long oval, and I tend to be best on ovals that are shorter than like a mile and a third in length. Because I think my biggest oval win in terms of track size is at Motegi, which a lot would argue doesn't really drive like a mile and a half despite being one. So, and then in terms of cars, 80, long way to go. It's just so many sports cars, so many different NASCAR variants, and I don't drive a lot of that stuff, so it's difficult for me to pick up wins in that. They're adding 3 new cars next season, which are the Dallara IL-15, the NXT car, which will feature at a C license, hence its location in this list. I have these organized by like the lowest license class you can participate in them in, except for these ones in the sports car one because they're just all over the place. They're adding the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 and the Ford Mustang GT4 to those classes. I have yet to win. Well, actually, I have one in the Ferrari GT3 through the fixed series, but I have yet to win in a GT4 car or any of the other GT3s that haven't featured in a standalone series. So that could be really easy, could be really hard. I think a lot of those more populated classes are going to be very, very difficult. I took my opportunity with F4 to drive it at a track that was wildly unpopular to try to sneak out of F4 without having to really run more than 3 races, because I only ran 3 races in the F4, and I'd hope to try to keep it to a minimum in terms of running that car at all. It's not one that I particularly get on with super, super well. So, and then if we move to what sheet is it? Is it this one? I think it's this one, right? Does it have Chicago? Yes, it does. So my career win total now is 186. I don't know in how many starts that is. I did break it down somewhere as to how these all worked out, but that's 100 distinct track layouts. So that actually makes it a fun round number for me to go through on the tier list, kind of talk about which of these reigns supreme, one over the other. We'll maybe use a bit of irstats.net, my own stat thing at some point, to go through that. Tier list those out, kind of discuss where that stands as well. I might just do the track tier list without a ton of context, because I think at the end of the day, it's how fun do you think the track is, and not necessarily like car or SOF or whatever specific. I think it's just how much fun did you have, to some extent. We'll see. I think it'll be easier to kind of start going through that. I'll maybe start with the easiest ones and iterate through it as I go through that. But last but not least, I'll cover week 13. It's coming up. It just started like 40 minutes ago. So new content stuff. They're going to do GT3s with Mexico City with the new Aston Martin. They're going to do GT4s at Nürburgring Nordschleife with some rain with the new Mustang GT4. Shiny new shakedown is going to be GT4s, including Mexico City. 13th week Formula Fun will be the IL-15 in Mexico City. That's where I'll be probably the bulk of this week. Getting an idea of how that car drives. 13th week Streak Stocks, Trucks, iRacing Series, MX5 Cup, 296 Challenge, Porsche Cup, FF1600, Dirt Street Stock, Dirt Pro, whatever, late model, Dirt Midget, Rallycross Light. Pickup Cup, Delara Dash, Carb Cup, 5 laps to go, 5 lap races. Maybe that'll be fun. I like PCC on ovals. That was fun last time. Battle of the Little Wings. Might do it just because it's got the IL-15 in it. Figure 8, Mini Stocks and Pro 2 Light, sure. ARCA, whatever. I don't really care about the GTPs personally, but I'm sure a lot of people will be trying out the new hybrid stuff. Just whatever. The typical fun stuff. I'm glad they brought mud skipping back with the Skippy as it's intended. So, I think that's it in terms of 2025 Season 3 in particular. I think last thing I'll touch on is the Sim Gaming Expo, because that happened last weekend. I guess it just ended yesterday. I was there all 3 days. It was a great event, meeting a lot of people throughout the IndyCar community and kind of sim racing at large, getting to hang out with names and faces that I've seen from all around. Guys like Kieran Lifflander, who I've raced tour mods with. I got to race him in rallycross cars, which is kind of his specialty, if you will. Racing all the IndyCar guys and the IndyCars, on the competition floor was a lot of fun, even if my race at Michigan ended prematurely due to a wreck. I just had nowhere to go past that point. So it was fun. It was a great time. It was fun hanging out with everybody. We went to Top Golf Saturday night, had a good time, everybody, and I hope that we'll be able to do something like that again next year, or maybe even sooner, who knows. But it was just nice to be able to see guys from the community hang out, talk about things in and out of sim racing, iRacing, whatever. See all the new products and stuff they were showing off. Just hang out and have a good time. I think it's, if you were concerned about going this year and worried about like attendance or just kind of the state of affairs, it was very, very smooth, very well thought out and set up. I think that if you can afford to go and have the opportunity to do so, and it comes around next year and you can do it, I'd definitely say go. Even if you don't compete in any of the events, I think just going there and being able to meet Um, all the content creators and kind of the brand people, and just see new products and hang out with guys that do the same stuff that you do. It's no different than any other convention, really, in terms of that kind of community atmosphere. And I think that's really, really valuable, especially for a kind of a more online isolated or online focused digital hobby like sim racing, or even sim gaming at large, because it is ultimately the sim gaming expo at the end of the day. But obviously, sim racing's a big, big part of that. So, um, thanks for watching. What's the runtime on this one? Did I go super long again? 40 minutes. That's pretty solid. I'll probably hop in to do a track tier list video, upload that maybe tomorrow or later this week. I don't know what else. I'm gonna do like a IL-15 comparison video, kind of a first impressions. Do a bit of testing with that, compare it to the other Road to Indy cars, including the IndyCar. From my perspective, because I've driven all those cars fairly extensively at this point, picked up a great number of starts and wins in those, so I kind of have a solid idea of where that car is going to fit in, generally speaking. And we'll see from there. It's going to be fun being able to try something new that I'm actually excited about for the first time in a while. There hasn't been a content release on iRacing that's like been properly new I've been excited for in a while. I think the last time would have been maybe the reintroduction of Legends Road Cup, but that wasn't new content so much as it was a new series. Obviously, they refreshed that car somewhat recently alongside the IndyCar, so there's that. But yeah, we'll see. I've got a lot to think on going into season 4 here, between the my broadcasting stuff, what I got to do for my own driving, just what I have time for amongst everything else. It's going to be a lot to try to figure out and account for heading into the last season of 2025. Preliminarily, I'm penciling in running USF and Legends Road again, at least in some capacity. I think if I'm gonna do a full season, this will probably be my last full season of USF. I just we'll see. Especially if it starts getting to the point where with NXT drawing more drivers away from us and running that instead, it might get more difficult to make this series thrive in a way that I'd want to continue racing it week in and week out super, super heavily anyway. I say that knowing full well that I'm the kind of the face of the car. I promote it pretty heavily. I swear by the racing quality, and I will continue to stand by the racing quality that we have in that series. I think it's a great way to learn racecraft and get comfortable with road and oval courses in open wheel cars, even if the oval side leaves a little bit to be desired. I still think it's one of the best in terms of outright racing on the surface, just given the way that the car is. Rolling starts really, really does help with getting cars kind of spaced out in a way that works, and you can stay in tows, and there's a lot of reward in being consistent and being able to stay in the draft and play smart and not necessarily just play hard. So Legends Road, I can say basically the same thing too. Rolling starts, and just it's a really good car to learn racecraft in, when to time your moves, when to pick your battles, and maybe hang back on other occasions. But thanks for watching. This closes out this season for me. This is the first kind of season I started doing content on YouTube too, so that even if it's been a couple videos throughout the season, it's been nice to be able to have something I can do every couple weeks, kind of talk things through, think about where I'm heading, where I'm going. So yeah, I just extended the runtime probably another 10 minutes here, but oh nope, 4. All right, well, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one whenever I get to it. It'll probably be track tier lists and IL-15 first impressions and anything else that I decide to do during week 13 here. And then I'll obviously have my outlook for season 4, what I plan to do there. Maybe an updated buyer's guide thing, but I don't think that's going to be super... Well, actually, it might be slightly more relevant now. Maybe I'll talk about kind of the Road to Indy progression now that they've readjusted that ladder when the schedules come out and stuff. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be another one of those, but I think the big thing is going to be kind of where I'm heading next season, what my plans are. Kind of go maybe do another week by week schedule of showing what I'm going to be focusing on. But you can kind of tell with the blue highlights in this sheet that those are the tracks I've got to hunt. So however I get them is however I get them. But thanks for watching. Have a good one. And I will catch you in the next one. See ya.